Acts 21 verse 27, Paul in the snake pit. Now you might understand how in the world we get that title for this message. Well, John the Baptist said to the Pharisees, he said, "You den of vipers," didn't he? You den, or you den of snakes, you pit of snakes. And then Jesus told the Pharisees and the scribes and etc., he told them that they were a brood of vipers also, a brood of devils. And so Paul now is among the same problematic people that killed Jesus. The same ones that killed Jesus now are after Paul's life and his blood. In verse number 27, chapter 21, verse number 27, Hos de emalon e hepta hemere sin teleste hoi apotes lysios Judeoi theosomenoi auton ento hero sinakekion Ponta ton oklon kai epibalon ep auton tos keros. When they were about, actually kept on being about the 7 days to be fulfilled, the ones from Asia, the Jews from Asia, having seen him, having seen who? Paul. Now, who were these guys in Asia? Do you remember who they were? These are the same ones that stoned Paul, the ones that chased him out of the country like bloodhounds. And now they come all the way to Jerusalem because there is a festival. There is a religious festival. And even though these people are really very, 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 very religious, they are murderers, liars, they are perjurers, just like those that lived in Jesus' time, because they had given their hearts to Satan. They had given their hearts to Satan. Now, the Apostle Paul, while he was still Saul, did everything that they were doing, except he thought he was pleasing God to the fullest. There was no confusion to him. He was going God's way, and he's going to kill all these Christians that were leading people away from the law of Moses. But when Jesus stopped him on the road to Damascus, it changed his life. And those that he had stood with now were standing against him. They saw him in the temple. And they kept on sitting around the whole crowd and laid their hands upon him. Now they laid their hands upon him to kill him. Their intent is to kill him right there. And they're going to start lying about him and crying out and trying to stone him, slash his throat, etc. Now these are the rascals that are crying out, Krazonte Andres Israelite, Boethete, Hutos estin ho anthropos ho kata tu lao kai tu nomo kai tu topo tuto pontos ponteke didaskalo, or didaskon that is, ete te kai elinas es el gago es to eron kai kakoe no ken ton hagio topon tuton. Now they're telling a lie here. They're lying right off the bat. Men Israelites, they're crying out. It says, men Israelites. And now they have here, they're crying out for help. That word boethete, it means they're crying out for help. Help! 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 This one, he is the man, the one against the people, and against the law, and against this place. all men everywhere, teaching. He's teaching all men everywhere. Yet even also Greeks. He brought into the Holy of Holies, the holy place, into the temple. And he has profaned this holy place. He has profaned it. He has made it common. He has made it Gentile. Profane. He has profaned our very place. Verse 29 now. Ason gar pro eroc kotes trophimon ton ephysion en te pole sin auto hon eno mizon hote es to heron es agogen ho paulos. For they had previously seen Trophimon. Now the word Trophimon there means well educated. One who knows. One who is nourished at the feet of teachers, and one who is well nourished in knowledge. The Ephesian. We saw him in the city with him, whom they kept on exposing that into the temple, that he brought him in with Paul, that he taught this Gentile in with Paul. They kept on wanting to believe that. Now, in the temple area, when you walked into the temple area, there was a Gentile court. Gentiles could be in that court. And then inside of that court was another court called the Israeli court, or the Jewish court. And above the door of that, or the opening of that, it says, you enter here, Gentiles enter here on the pain of death. And then, of course, they went in all the way into the Holy of Holies. Now, they accused Paul of taking Trophimus into the Jewish court and into the very temple itself. Now, they were lying. They saw Paul and they saw Trophimus, but they didn't see him there. Now, for a death sentence, guess what? You had to have how many eyewitnesses for a death sentence? Remember?
2 or 3.
2 or 3 witnesses for a death sentence in there, and they don't have anyone that had seen him in there. Then it says, Ekenethe te he polis, holin kai agenato, syndrome, tu lao kai epilabonoi, tu paulo, elkon, auton, exo tu, ero kai uthios, ekleisthathon, hoi, sire. And the whole city, it says they were moved. The whole city was excited. The whole city was on the edge of turmoil, on the edge of chaos. We have all over America for the whole last year, we've had nothing but chaos with Black Lives Matter, from one end of it to the other. They say they want justice, but how can you ask for justice when you're destroying people's property? Maybe the people need justice from them, most assuredly. They're all running together, the whole crowd now, the whole city, all the people, and then having laid hands upon Paul, they kept on dragging him forcefully and violently outside of the temple area actually, and immediately they shut the doors to the temple area. They shut the doors to the temple area. Let's go on a little bit further now in verse number 31. Zayton ton, te harton, auton that is, apoketene, anabe, phasis, tu, kiliarchon, tes, speres, hote, hole, sinak, kenete, Jerusalem. And they were seeking, they kept on seeking Paul to kill him. And then the information came up to the Chiliarch, ruler of 1,000 men of the cohort, because the entire city of Jerusalem kept on being caused to be in confusion and rioting. Now, here is the temple area down here, and up here is the Antonia Fortress. And the Antonia Fortress houses a lot of Roman soldiers, so that they can immediately pour out of that tower to protect or to defend the city. And they hear all this commotion going on there, and out of the top of that tower is a roadway. It's on the top of the wall. And then they come down off the walls, and here they are. They surround these rioting Jews. At once, it says. 21:32, hos exates parlavon stratiotos kai ek kanta tarkos kare dramen f autois hoid de idontes ton kiliarchon kai tus stratetios epaosanto tipon tontes ton polon. And absolutely at once, having taken the soldiers and the centurions, and they ran down upon them. Like I said, they ran off the wall and down on upon these people in this area. Because the Jews are prone to rioting. Always, it seems like. And they were ready for this, even though it surprised them. Now, what in the world are they doing now? What kind of a riot have we got going here now? One riot after another. These riots finally caused that city to be totally torn down. The only thing left in the whole city of Jerusalem was what? You might know? The whole city, the only thing left in the city of Jerusalem was the Antonia Tower.
It was the Wailing Wall, Frank.
Yeah, well, that was down below. That's below, actually. Yeah. The Wailing Wall was actually under the rubble.
Antonio Tower?
Yeah, the Antonio Citadel. That's the only thing left.
Oh.
Yeah. They had to dig all the rubble away from that wall to see the wall. And that citadel was above that Wailing Wall, by the way. They ran down into the temple area. The centurions, men over 100, and they ran down upon them, and these were trained soldiers now. The ones having seen the Chiliarch, the man over 1,000, and the soldiers, they ceased beating Paul. Now they're in trouble. They've been caught. They have been caught. And here they are doing violence. They don't have the right to do what? They do not have the right to execute anyone, except that they have already executed Stephen on their own. That was a law-breaking event. Verse number 23 now. Tote egesos ho kiliarchos epi la begto auton kai eke klesin diathenae alese dise kai epon thaneto tis e kai ti esten pepoiekos. Then, having drawn near the Chiliarch, he laid hold of him, and he commanded him to be bound and chained with two chains, and he kept on inquiring who he might be. Why in the world? Who is this malefactor? Who is this outlaw that they're trying to kill this guy? And what's going on here? What's being done here? What's having been done? What has this man done? What has this man done that people are trying to kill him like this? And they're going to find out pretty soon that the outlaws are not Paul, but it's the rest, it's the crowd. Aloe de allo ti epiphonon ento oklo me dinamino de auto none to asphales dia ton thorubon eki lisen agese auton esto parabole, and others, different ones. They kept on calling out of the crowd. They were just screaming. And they didn't know what in the world is even going on. What is this thing that's happening? Because of the uproar, he commanded that he be brought forth into the fort, into the fortress. Verse number 31 now, or 35 that is. Hote de ageneto epitus anabathomos sinabe bastazeste auton hypoton strataton dia tain bion tu oklu. Moreover, it became upon the steps that it came together that Paul was to be carried by the soldiers. They picked him up and carried him because of the violence of the crowd. They picked Paul up on their shoulders and carried him out of there because of the violent crowd. Isn't this what happened when Jesus was tried? Isn't this the same thing when they arrested him in the garden? Paul the Apostle is experiencing the very same things that his Savior experienced by the same people, or the descendants of the same people at least. Verse number 36. Akulote, gar to plethos tu lao krazontes aire auton. For the multitude of the people kept on following, crying out, take him away, carry him away, bear him away. Verse number 37, Melon, te, esa gogeste, es tain, parabalain, ho paulos, elegay, to, kilarko, e, existen, noi, epan, ti, prost, si, hode, fa, ele, neste, genoskes. They're about to bring him into the fortress. And Paul, he says to the Chiliarch, the ruler of 1,000, is it lawful for me to say something to you? Is it lawful for me to say something to you? And he said in Greek, he spoke this in classical Koine Greek now. This is not a dumb Jew that's speaking to them. This is a man that's educated now. Now, all of a sudden, Paul's words in Greek, these words that you hear right here, he's speaking in Greek. Paul had a command of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek at least. We know that. Now the mafia, the den of snakes, the snake pit.
Assassins.
Yeah, in verse number 38. Uk ara si a ho Egyptois, ho pro tuto, ton hemeron, anastastos, kai, ex agogon, eis tain ermo tu tetra kysilos, andros ton si karion. He said, are you the Egyptian? Are you the Egyptian, the one before this time, having unsettled, having caused an insurrection, and having led out into the desert the 4,000 men of the Sicarii? Who is this Sicarii? These are the stiletto men. These are the men that eventually would cause, these are the people that stood at Masada. These are the Sicarii.
Mm-hmm.
These are the assassins, the Jewish assassins. Now these Jewish assassins had even gone into Jewish cities and taken people captive for their cause. You know, their cause, they tried to act like they were the same people in the Maccabees that liberated the Jewish people, but these were not. These are the people that are going to take the whole Jewish nation down with them. Now they go from city to city, they kidnap people, they'd extort money from people. They even kidnapped the high priest one time and wanted money for him. Now, are you the Egyptian that long ago led the people, 4,000 men out in the desert? The men of the stiletto men, the Bravo troop, the Mafia, the Sika, the short word for sword. Now it is said that some of these people that escaped went into Sicily. And if you ask the Italians, the Sicilians are not Italians. And you can trace these. I've known people that actually traced their DNA right straight. They were from Sicily, and they strayed right back to the Levantine, back into this very people. These are the Mafia, the stiletto men, the Jewish Mafia. They would slip into a Roman crowd or into a banquet, and they slip up behind a Roman soldier and take their sharp double-edged swords out, or stilettos, and they stick it into his stomach, up into his heart, pull it out, and walk off. And that's what these people were doing from Masada. They were slipping down out of Masada, going in and causing havoc, and then going back out there in Masada. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Barabbas and the two men that were supposed to be crucified with him were part of the Sicarii. Judas Iscariot was part of the Sicarii. Simon, the Zealot. The word Zealot was also another term, a synonymous term for Sicarii. Epan de hopolos ego anthropos. Man emi, Judeas, Tarusos, Tes, Selikios, Uk, Asemu, Polios, Polites, Deomai, De, Su, Epi, Trepson, Mu, Lalese, Tros, Ton, Laon. Now Paul said, I am a man, indeed a Jew. He said, I keep on being a Jew, right there, the word Amy. He said, I keep on being a Jew. He said, I'm a citizen or a descendant or I came from Tarsus. Tarsus was a free city. They didn't have to pay any taxes. This was a high elite city of Cilicia. And he said, no, what we might say, no small city, no small group. I'm from a famous area. That's where I am. Not only am I a Jew, but I'm a Roman citizen. He said, I'm a citizen of that city, and I beg you, for myself, that you allow me to speak to the people. Allow me to speak to the people. Now, people out here are Jews. Most of them. Paul, I mean, all of these guys have somewhat command of the Greek language and maybe some Latin and Aramaic. But the Apostle Paul spoke Hebrew of Hebrew, real biblical Hebrew. He spoke Aramaic. He spoke probably some Latin and Greek fluently. Epitrixantes de auto ho paulos estos. Epiton anabathon. Kathesis te kerato lao poles de siges. Genomenes prosi phonesen te hybridia dialecton. Lego. Now he's speaking the Hebrew dialect. And having permitted him, Paul, he stood up upon the steps, and he went up and down like this with his hand, telling everybody, listen, 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 listen. It means to raise your hand up and down to get their attention. Beckoning with his hand to the people. And much silence having become. And he addressed them in the Hebrew language. Now, he goes from Greek to Hebrew. And every time he does this, it is for attention. He wants to tell the Roman soldiers that, hey, I am an educated man. I'm not some heathen backyard or backwoods political and religious nut. He said, I am a man of a very important city, Tarsus. I'm Tarsian. He said, I'm a Roman citizen. And now he turns around to the Jews and he speaks to them in their own language so they can understand him. He abruptly goes from one language to the other. Now let's go back and let's look at what this says from the Amplified Bible, starting with verse number 26. Then Paul took the four winds with him, and the following day they went through the rites of purifying himself with them. Now these are Jews, aren't they? And they're probably going through the rite of purification from the voluntary priest. What's that now? A Nazarite. The vow of the Nazarites. They're laying down the vow of the Nazarites. They're purifying himself with them, and they entered the temple area to give notice, and when the days of purification, the ending of each vow, would be fulfilled, the usual offering could be presented on behalf of each of them. And who paid for this offering? Who paid for all these offerings? Paul paid for it. He paid for the sacrifices that were being made. And when the 7 days were drawing to a close, some of the Jews from the province of Asia, who had caught sight of Paul in the temple and decided all the rabble. Now this is rabble here. These are the lower class of people, the rabble. And they laid hands on him. Now, throughout America today, we're having riots all over, aren't we? They're always looking for a reason to riot. Because nobody's doing anything about it. Now, the Roman government was going to do something about this. Shouting, men of Israel, help! Help! This is the man who is teaching everybody everywhere against the people of the law and against this place. And moreover, he has also actually brought Greeks into the temple, and he has desecrated and polluted this holy place. Now that was a death sentence, but they're lying. If he had actually taken into the Jewish area, he would have been killed. He could have been killed. But they're lying, just like they lied about Jesus. For they had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian, in the city with Paul, and they supposed that he had brought the man into the temple, that is, into the inner court, forbidden to the Gentiles. Then the whole city was aroused and thrown into confusion, and the people rushed together, and they laid hands upon Paul, and they dragged him outside of the temple, and immediately the gates were closed. They immediately closed the gates of the temple area. Now, while they were trying to do all of this, and trying to kill him, word came to the commandment of the Roman garrison that the whole of Jerusalem was in a state of ferment and riot. So immediately he took soldiers and centurions And these are trained soldiers. These men are used to battle. A centurion is a man that leads 100 men. He's the guy out in front with the sword. And they hurried down among them, and the people saw the commandment and the troops. They stopped beating Paul. They were going to beat him to death. Now you can't beat, according to Jewish law, you can't beat anybody until charges have been brought against him and he has been pronounced guilty. They're breaking their own laws, and they're lying about it. Then the commandant approached and arrested Paul and ordered that he be secured with 2 chains, and then inquired who he was and what he had done. And then some of the crowd kept shouting back one thing and others something else. And since they did not even ascertain the real facts, because of the furor, because of the rioting, he ordered that Paul be removed to the barracks. And when Paul came to the steps, he was actually being carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the mob. For the mass of the people kept following them, shouting, away with him, kill him, kill him, kill him. Just like they did Jesus. Mm-hmm. Verse number 37, just as Paul was about to be taken into the barracks or the fortress, he asked the commandant, may I say something to you? Is it legal for me to say something to you? And the man replied, can you speak Greek? He spoke in Greek to him, and he said, can you speak Greek? He was surprised. This isn't one of these dupes out there. This isn't one of these malefactors. This isn't one of these low-educated village idiots, so to speak. Are you not then, as I suppose, the Egyptian who not long ago stirred up, and of course the Egyptian Jews, they spoke what? They spoke Greek. Mm-hmm. These were the Hellenistic Jews who stirred up a rebellion and led those 4,000 men of the cutthroats into the wilderness, the Sicarii, the assassins. And Paul answered, he said, I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no insignificant and undistinguished city. I beg you allow me to address these people. Now Paul turns around and starts talking in Hebrew, or at least the Aramaic dialect of Hebrew. And when that man had granted him permission, Paul, standing on the steps, gestured with his hand to the people, and there was a great hush. Then he spoke to them in the Hebrew dialect. Then we start over here in chapter 22. Do you have any questions about this? Any questions about this?
Did he have any of his, like Luke and some of his followers helping him?
They were around out there, standing back, just like they did when Jesus. These people, many had come him, but he had 4 Jewish people that he'd taken in there and had accomplished the vows and paid for the sacrifice. Paul was not guilty of anything that they were accusing him of, but they wanted him murdered. They wanted him out of the way because he was had betrayed them and gone over to and become a Christian. Sharon, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being with us tonight, all of you out there, all over the country, and even on the televisit or telechurch here that we have.